everybody. Welcome back to the studio. I'm Joe. If you don't know who I am, I'm an indie filmmaker and YouTube content creator. And what I'm doing today is I'm analyzing some shots and the scene and shot choices for the new Kenobi show that's going to be coming out on Disney Plus. I'm going to be looking at it from a filmmaker's perspective, analyzing it, giving you my thoughts on a couple filmmaking aspects so that we can all learn how to analyze films from a filmmaking perspective. This is beneficial to indie filmmakers or just casual watchers that want to be in the know. So we're going to start off by I'm going to get into a little bit explaining the rule of thirds and the golden ratio according to the Fibonacci sequence. But first, I want to explain something that's pretty simple. I'm going to take a look at and play through the Kenobi show trailer, and look at some of the shots they've chosen to include in the trailer. And I'm going to show you how, like a simple way on how to make a cinematic shot with depth. So there's a lot of ways to make something look cinematic, but I'm going to show you the concept of depth before we get into this rule of thirds or golden ratio breakdown. So kind of as an added bonus right here at the top. So let's go ahead and play through this, and I'll pause it when I see something I want to explain. Beautiful opening shot.
The fight is done. We lost.
All right. So I'm going to start off by just doing this. So I've already seen it a couple times in the first few shots that we've seen, and I'm sure you've probably already seen this trailer by now if you're watching this. So when you're creating a scene, when you're creating an environment that the actor or the talent is placed in, you want to create depth in your image, because everyone thinks of a film like a movie, like a window that you're seeing into another world. But the way to start thinking like a filmmaker is thinking on this x-axis, not just y and z, but actually the deepness that you are looking directly into. So in order to do that, you have to create depth, not just with, shallow depth of field, or not just with even lighting. That's a big part of depth, but even just with how you choose your camera to look as far as a direction and how you set that up. So a good way to do that, just across the board, almost for every shot you can take, except unless it's a really close shot, is create 3 layers of depth. And so like if you look at this shot, the main layer is right here in the center. So you have Kenobi sitting on the ground. He's the focus. And all of this rocky area that he's sitting on, that is the same field deep-wise into the image that he is on. So that's the middle area. The first area that's closest to us in this window that we're seeing are these 2 edges. So you have the first layer that is here, that's closest to us, that we're looking through. You have the second layer, which is all of this, and then you have the next layer, which is furthest away, and that's all that the desert off into the distance. This is a beautiful example, a very simple yet beautiful example of how to create depth in an image. I'm going to keep going and explain it once again. I could explain this one, but I want you to think about it before I explain another one. Tell me if you can kind of see the 3 layers of depth in this image. Let's keep going.
Stay hidden.
The key to hunting Jedi is patience.
All right, this is a beautiful example of 3 layers of depth. You have the character that we are over the shoulder on right here. Right here. So that's the layer closest to us. And then you have the focus, which is obviously this character. And then you have the third depth layer, which is behind all of this. So all of this area. So this is it seems simple, and a lot of times you don't think about it as you're watching through a film or you're watching through a show or something of that nature. But this is a very simple example to create depth. This is a part of making things look cinematic. When you say something needs to look cinematic, or that shot looks cinematic, or I want my footage to look cinematic like the movies, a lot of times that is left up for interpretation in a lot of people's mind. We don't really have a clear, defined way of saying what is in fact, cinematic. And this is a very awesome way of saying, where are my layers of depth in this image? So let me try to find one more interesting one, because it's been all through here. I'm not explaining it all because I want you to analyze it and try to see it for yourself also.
Jedi cannot help what they are.
All right. So, well, I'll go to another one. It's there, but
Their compassion.
this is a really easy one. Obviously, we have the feet hanging up here at the top. That is the area that's closest to us, first layer. Then you have these individuals who are right at the front of this crowd, and they're obviously their bodies. That is the second layer, and then the background layer that has even more depth. Now, they actually use depth of field for this, so everything looks a little more blurry than what's right here, and this is the focus point right here. So they've chosen, it's not the middle ground that's in focus, it's actually the feet that are hanging. So they've changed the focus of it, but yet there are still 3 layers of this. Let's do one more before I get to the next section.
Leaves a trail.
Okay, this is an interesting one.
The Jedi.
Let me back up just a second. I'm going to try to do this one for you. So obviously we have the front and center focus that is indeed actually in focus is this character here. I would say that this light and everything on this plane here is probably going to be the second layer, and then out of focus even more, you have all of this other inner city, and the shot's kind of in process of moving. So if in the show it keeps going, we might see more of this city in the background instead of just at the very top of the frame. But that's kind of how you break it down as far as layers go. Just for fun, let's finish off this trailer, and if I have anything else I want to point out, I will point it out. But if not, we'll just finish off before we get to
Jedi code is
the rule of thirds framing.
like an itch. He cannot help it. Where is he?
Oh, I got to do this one really quick. So it's pretty obvious. I wanted to point this out because there's cool color difference in this one as well. So obviously we have the center, the middle ground focus here as far as depth, the one closest to the camera, and even kind of the wall on this side and right here. That's kind of closest to us. And we have awesome leading lines down through here, by the way. Those are awesome. And then the cool thing is the background layer is kind of this little blocky area here. You see that? And it's cool because the color difference is actually like this yellow hue that's filled with fog above them. So it's not just that we have these colder tones here, but we also have this really cool color difference that's a warmer, foggy tone that's more faded in the back. I really like this. As far as in the trailer, this shot, as far as composition goes, is my favorite from the trailer. It's so cool. And just as an example, I mentioned this, you can't do it very well with close-up shots because the focus is kind of the character. You can do it. It depends on where your angles are. But like here, we clearly only have 2. We have an empty sky that doesn't give us a lot of texture, but that's okay because we have a lot of texture on the focus, which is Kenobi here. And there's only 2 layers there. So it's not as much depth, but it's okay. It's just a choice that they chose to get that close up, to get the emotion of the character. Let's finish this off. Ooh. Awesome. So as I promised, I'm going to go over The rule of thirds, and some of you may have already known what this is. Some of you may already know very well what the rule of thirds is. I don't want to question your intelligence here, but I actually want to see how they're applying it to shots from this trailer. And there's also another aspect to the rule of thirds that's kind of debated in the creative world very slightly. It's based on the Fibonacci golden spiral. And they call it the golden ratio in filmmaking terms. So if you're not familiar with it, a lot of people have seen this before. The Fibonacci golden spiral is this, I'm not going to go into all the specifics and the maths and the science related to it, but we believe that based on the universe, everything, some people believe everything kind of falls into this Fibonacci mathematical progression. In filmmaking terms, it's interesting that it's very similar to the rule of thirds, but we believe that if you kind of mirror on a window, so a specific ratio or aspect ratio for your composition for your screen, that if you mirror them, it actually creates and naturally it creates a kind of rule of thirds diagram that looks kind of like this tic-tac-toe, except the center is pulled in a little bit more than the standard rule of thirds. And so what I've done is I've taken the rule of thirds in red color and the golden ratio based on Fibonacci in blue color, and I've placed them on top of our screenshot. So let's take a look at that. I wanted to do this because I wanted to see what ratio or what third that they are using during this trailer. So if we look at this screenshot right here, it's really fascinating. Remember, the blue is the golden ratio. They're actually using the golden ratio here because they are on this line. And actually, it's kind of weird because it's the butt of the animal, but the butt kind of lines up with this little intersecting point here. But the cool thing about when it comes to thirds or the golden ratio is you could put people on a line, you can put people on an intersecting point, or you can even put people like or block things off. So like if you wanted to, like as you can see, the sky all up here is blocked off as kind of this upper third area, right? And it's cool because they made a line where the red rule of thirds line that goes across is, but actually the center of these, the base of these mountains is actually where the golden ratio line lines up across there. So it's not necessarily the edge of the mountains, but rather the base of the mountains, if you see that right there. So it looks like from this, they're taking cues more heavily from the golden ratio. Let's go ahead and keep looking. And another cool thing here is, like I said, you don't always have to put people on the intersecting points. But if you look at here, the eyes are important. When there's eyes in the scene, it's important because those tend to be the focus for that specific scene. So if you look here on the Fibonacci, the golden ratio, his eyes are literally. When I dropped this on top of these screenshots, it was awesome because literally things lined up so well according to this either rule of thirds or the golden ratio. His eyes are right on top of this line, which is very cool. They gave him some lead room here, but also notice he's kind of being blocked off by the rule of thirds. So if you kind of see where his head is, they've kind of blocked it off right like there. That's what I like personally. I like looking at these rules and using them as blocking, not just intersecting points. There's a lot of ways that you can use them. Let's look at the next one. Once again, the golden ratio cutting right through the eyes of the character. And the cool thing is it's actually blocking off all of the action. So where the lightsaber goes, her torso is, her eye line, it's blocking it off where the action is. It's like right here. And so it looks like they're taking cues still from the golden ratio, even more than the thirds here. This is a trickier one because you could say that the heel of the boot on this side is kind of hitting a third, but I'm actually more interested in the blocking of it is kind of where the bottom of the feet lie. And that's right on the line. The other cool thing for blocking is kind of a little bit off center, but kind of the center of the frame, you have this man looking up and his head hits right in the center of the golden ratio. So let's keep going. And this is a very cool shot, as I've already talked about, for the depth. This is awesome because they are like the closest you could be to center on Kenobi there without actually being center. I mean, he is barely not center there, but it looks like it's kind of a split here because you could say that the rule of thirds is cutting at right at the rock layer there, or you could say they're using blocking to just make a perfect kind of block around him. Either way, it's very interesting composition, very simple yet dynamic. And then my favorite shot from the trailer, I would actually say this is probably using a third. Now, the golden ratio is like right next to her, but if I'm looking at these horizontal lines based on the location, then you would see that the third is actually hitting and splitting right where that wall stops. And then also it's kind of closest to her eye line or cutting off right at her head, which, you know, I would probably give this one to the thirds as opposed to golden ratio. And then this one was difficult for me as well, but I'm going to pull my attention to this character over here. Now, this is kind of a shot that pans and dollies at the same time. So it kind of changes, but it's really quick. What I'm more interested in is the blocking. So if you see right here on the third, top of the head, and pretty close to the bottom of the feet, a little bit higher than the bottom of the feet, I'm going to give this one to the third because I like the way they chose to block it. But I also, if you look over here at this character, I think that's a she. She's kind of lined up perfectly with the golden ratio. So it's hard to say on this one. However, either way, these two characters, I think during the pan, do actually connect because I think it goes a little further this way. So I think they actually do kind of land on either start or end on the third here. So I'm going to give this one to the rule of thirds. And then this is the last one I have. It's actually rule of thirds very clearly because his eye is right on top of that rule of thirds line. Not so much the golden ratio, more so the rule of thirds. And if they would have just moved him over just a hair, they could have had that eye perfectly lined up. Yet they chose not to. They gave him a little bit more breathing room on this side than they needed to. They could have, pushed him this way just a little bit, but they chose not to, and that's okay. It's a creative choice of the cinematographers and directors on set. I hope this was beneficial, and I hope it wasn't too boring, but this is something that I'm always interested in composition. Filmmakers are thinking in this way constantly. How do they add depth? How do they line things up to maybe psychologically make more sense in people's minds? How are they bringing the focus of the scene to the right spot in the camera frame? And it's constant creative choices always. And there's not really a wrong way to do it. There's sometimes, most of the time, is a better way to do it though. So it's interesting to kind of compare these two. As I said before, there's a little bit of debate on which one is actually more accurate for the human eye, the rule of thirds or the golden ratio. I think across the board, when we see a trailer like this, that's I'm saying is using both, I think you can kind of creatively use both as you see fit. Personally, I like the way the golden ratio frames things a little better than the rule of thirds, but hey, that is left up for interpretation from person to person. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If this was helpful, if it was inspirational, or if it was educational to you, I would much appreciate it if you gave this video a thumbs up. I also would love you to stick around and hear me talk more about filmmaking, hear me explain a little bit more about what I see from movies, shows, trailers, things of that nature from the filmmaking side of things. So if you want to stick around, I want to encourage you to please hit subscribe and hit that bell so you get notified when we come out with another video. thank you so much. Don't go away. Wyatt's going to be in right after me to talk more about Kenobi.